Hey folks, thanks for being here. We're going to be starting in just about a minute. Super excited to get into this topic here today. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hello everyone. I'm Lewis with Media Garcia, and we're going to get started with our stream on lifecycle stages. Thanks for being here. Really excited to talk about this topic. We actually have been talking about this topic now for the last week or so. So if you haven't seen our other videos, we're going to cover some similar things, but we are going to make this one a little bit different as well. So far, over the last week or so, if you look at some of our past streams, we've been going through what lifecycle stages look like inside our customer relationship management tool and how we can use those life cycle stages to track our contacts as they move through different stages and cycles, and then also reporting and analyzing the movement of these life cycle stages into different stages, and then what does that all mean, right? And coming up with an analysis, right, of the flow of information. So let's get into the agenda for today's stream. We're going to start with just some foundational understanding of life cycle stages, because chances are you might not have watched the other streams, and so you might have some questions, and that's okay. So we're going to make sure that we lay down the framework first and define what life cycles are and explain their importance in managing customer journeys. And then we'll discuss the standard HubSpot stages, as we are a HubSpot Platinum Solution Partner, and so we use HubSpot day in and day out for ourselves and also for all of our pretty much all of our customers. And we're also going to talk about common mistakes and misconceptions when setting up life cycle stages. So we'll be talking about best practices so that way you can get the most value out of them. We'll be looking at different kind of templates for life cycle stages as well. So we're going to draw it out, right? So we're going to get our crayon box out of our art shelf and use tools to illustrate what these life cycle stages look like and how do they connect to each other. And then we'll even introduce like probably what other common properties marketing and sales teams use to track contacts through different lifecycle stages, including lead status and deal stages as well. So they all kind of work together. And we'll look at how different automations and workflows might support you in moving contacts through different stages of the life cycle. Then we'll spend some time going through real world examples of how lifecycle stages are working within a variety of different companies, including SaaS, e-commerce, service-based businesses, B2B and B2C. And we'll look at how lifecycle stages can be updated, both manually and also through automation. We'll likely look at some of the forums and community resources that are available around lifecycle stages to see what other people are dealing with, recommendations, best practices, and templates that they might have as well. Then we'll do some charting and data visualizations to look and visualize lifecycle stages and highlight how stages impact reporting and decision making, and explain and show how charts can help us understand things at a glance, like conversion rates and stage velocity and drop-offs. And we'll use these to illustrate different types of insights to potentially optimize the lifecycle process. And then we'll wrap it all up and summarize our key takeaways and answer any remaining viewer questions. Speaking of which, feel free to engage and ask questions throughout the stream. We are live right now across LinkedIn, Twitch, and YouTube. Okay. So let's take a look here. I am gonna switch gears now, and we'll go ahead and start sharing screens and getting through our material. And in order to do that, we're gonna bring our screen online here. Just one moment, folks. All right, cool. All right, so first let's just get a lay of the land of what is lifecycle stages. So I'm actually usually using a template from Digitopia Agency, and so they, I think I found this on their website or through some piece of content, and they also have this diagram that they had linked onto their site as well. And so as we look across the top here, we see the main categories of lifecycle stages like subscriber. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Subscriber, and then it moves eventually to lead, MQL, or otherwise known as marketing qualified lead, SQL, sales qualified lead, opportunity, and then customer. And if I zoom out in this example, we can see that there's a lot of different actions and activities that are happening across this journey. So the contacts are being created. For example, they submit a form on a website, or they're added by integration, and then there's some, as you can see here, they call it some HubSpot automation, and then eventually they move them into a subscriber status. Lifecycle stage is up to subscriber, lead status is updated to new, contact records scrubbed by marketing. If the contacts look alike, then there's a dedupe likely. If they're not, then they'll likely make decisions on whether or not to keep in the database and either delete it or update the lead status, right? And so this is the value, right, of having different lifecycle stages that we can track, because then you can say, okay, well, now it's a lead. What happens? Well, when contacts become a lead, maybe the lead status becomes nurturing. Then in this case, we're looking for like a HubSpot score or like a lead scoring property to exceed a certain amount in order to move this contact from lead to MQL, right? So they're using score to manage that. And if they don't meet that score, then there's likely some nurturing and other things that are happening in order to get that lead more engaged, so and nurtured and more engaged, so that they would eventually fulfill that score. And at some point, though, if they don't, then they may just fall out completely out of the lifecycle journey. And you can see that this kind of keeps repeating, but it's slightly different because we're doing different actions and different activities. For example, when you're in SQL, the sales team is usually trying to schedule connect calls or trying to meet with the prospect, and they're trying to determine whether or not they should move forward with this particular prospect, right? So the goals, the criteria to enter and the criteria to exit, right, are very unique in between each stage. And then you get into the opportunity stage. This might be where, you're now working this opportunity. So we're going to update lifecycle stage. We're going to update lead status. And we're creating, deals within HubSpot that we're tracking this information through. And you can see eventually there's a lot of different movements and branches that this particular opportunity might eventually move into, until at the very bottom here you can see that the deal is moved to a closed one, right? And if it's closed one, then it becomes a customer, and there's only a few steps there, right? So for a sophisticated company, right, that has marketing team, sales team, and that they're executing a lot of activities and are nurturing leads, this is what you could come to expect to find, if it's been set up well, but usually there's some gaps from where companies are in this. And I've seen a lot of different approaches and implementations of automations and setups with lifecycle stage. And so that's why we want to make this content available to everyone, because if we can look to see how people are doing this and share our stories, share our structures, our setups, then we can all start to align with best practices and better performance as a result. So this is just one example. I'm going to give you another example here. It's illustrated a little bit differently, but this is actually one that we had created with a client, and we didn't show all the internal actions and other workflows and things that need to happen here, but this is, again, just keeping it pretty high level, right? So while this Digitopia piece shows all the branches and activities and the different values and movement of things, which is really great, we have another version here that I'm just going to show. So up top here we have buyer action, right? So we're showing the type of actions that a buyer is taking across the journey, right? And then we have different internal actions. So internal actions meaning what is the company doing with this particular contact at these different life cycle stages. And then we have another column here, a swim lane, for the life cycle stage itself. So again, life cycle stages typically move from subscriber, lead, MQL, SQL, opportunity, customer. And then there's also evangelist stage. These are the default HubSpot stages, by the way. And we have we have a scoring property swim lane that shows us where we're looking at different scoring models. And there's also another swim lane that shows us the different potential lead statuses that this particular contact might move through, including new, attempting to connect, unqualified, connected, open deal, not interested, and eventually customer. So there's different lead statuses that typically the sales team is using to update the contact. And on top of that, there's also deal stages, right? So there's different deal stages that a deal might go through once a contact is within this opportunity stage, right? So all these different kind of pieces of information, can relate and help tell the story around where contacts are at. For example, you could have a contact that is in the opportunity stage with a lead status of open deal, and they might be in the stage of deal stage of conditional, right? And so all three of those pieces of information can help with our list segmentation and being able to know like where people are at, within the broader customer lifecycle. And then we also had another swim lane for tickets down here where we were tracking more on the customer or service and success side, what's happening post sales. So there might be some post sales follow up in this example. We can see are handling different types of customer support issues. So this is another example of what a customer journey may look like for your business. And now this example, this was for I guess it was for like a B2C investor type setup. This Digitopia piece seemed kind of industry agnostic, but again, these are going to be typically used for companies that want to track prospects and leads through a considered purchasing journey, meaning that you have a list of contacts and you want to be able to track them over the different kind of stages and interactions that they might take within your company. So as opposed to being very transactional, if your business is transactional, like you sell cookies in the market, or you're a bakery, or you're you may not need to necessarily track all these things, but this becomes really important for particularly B2B companies that have customer journeys that might take weeks, months, even years to close a business. So these are the kind of standard out of the box stages that we have here. We also have another, let me go back to this document here, because this will show another example map here that we have on the top here. Now in this example, we have another lifecycle stage, which is visitor. In this example, lifecycle stages can be customized, and and there's benefits and there's pros and cons, right? I think to that. So generally, my stance on it is just to go with your out of the box lifecycle stages and to not change them unless you have a very compelling case to do so. And even if you are going to change them, to make sure that typically it's better to just rename or reuse stages that you might have if they're similar enough today, rather than like deleting and adding stages, as that can cause problems with conversion reporting and particularly for historical reporting. All right, and let's look at what we have in this sheet. So we have different visitor stages, or we have lifecycle stages, visitors, subscriber, lead. So I'm just going across the top here. And and there's another stage here called other. Other typically is going to hold anything that for like anyone that you don't sell to, typically. And you could also put, like in this definition, disqualified or asked to be removed, right? So if people don't want to be ever in your selling process or the sales journey, then you can also use other as a potential definition for that. You can see in this spreadsheet that they have definitions. They also highlight like who's the contact owner, right? And so you'll notice at one point, right, marketing is the owner for subscribers and leads, but once they become an MQL, well then that contact, that lead now gets sent over to the sales team, right? So sales team's working on it while it's a MQL SQL. Eventually when they become a customer, right now it's up to the service or account manager or success delivery, whatever it might be, they take over at that point. There's a couple other columns here, or rows, that indicate different types of data that we want to track. For example, like if you have a pixel on your website, you can track visitors. Typically, subscribers are people who fill out any form. Leads usually match a MQL demographic criteria, meaning they're the right role, they're at the right company, the right type of company, whether it be industry, geography, etc. And so there might be different matching criteria they want to track in order to move someone from a subscriber into a lead status. And MQL, to move someone into an MQL, the data indicator on that typically is a lead score. So you might have like 100 leads in your database, and you want to understand who are ones that the marketing team are going to deem as ready for sales, to look at, and you would want to set up a criteria, typically through lead scoring, to support with that. Now, the nice thing about using lead scoring for this is that lead scoring can be like a valve on your leads. If you're generating a lot of leads, and the challenge is more about just making sure that only the highest quality leads move first through your system, an effective way to do that would be to set up a lead score system and property within your CRM, so that you are scoring your leads, and then you're setting a threshold for those leads at an appropriate level that moves the contacts through the appropriate lifecycle stage. And SQL could be that the deal card is created in a discovery pipeline, or that deal card is marked as closed loss. So those could be potential SQLs, and then so forth. So there's other data indicators that we might want to check. Some other rows and potential things you might want to understand and track, as well as might be different types of behavioral indicators that are happening, any type of changes. Here's another call out to lead status, so being able to track different lead statuses throughout. Lead statuses are kind of like a sub status to lifecycle stage. It just takes the lead under the microscope and really looks at where they're at. And then the same goes for deal stages, but where the deal stages are mainly at the opportunity lifecycle stage. And then we can even highlight what are the different types of marketing activities that should be happening, what are the different types of sales activities, and also service activities. So, for example, if you're a marketing team and you're trying to understand what to do with a huge list of leads, it could be as simple as just nurturing, setting up nurturing workflows, right, to move contacts, try to promote contacts between subscribers or leads. Task assignments, other things might be like different platform setups and things that you need connected in order for this to work. And then segmentation lists, right? So there's different lists that can be created as well to say, here's my leads, here's my MQLs, here are my high scored MQLs, etc. So this is an example of a map of life cycle stages. And so, I definitely, we work with companies on setting up their life cycle stages and optimizing them, and also helping them determine different types of definitions and triggers and workflows that happen as a result. And so that's something that we have a lot of experience with, and why we want to share this information with people. All right, good. Well, let me just take a moment here. I'm going to get our next resources ready for us. All right, good. So I want to bring up HubSpot's knowledge base article on lifecycle stages as well. Just to, the knowledge base is a very valuable resource to have at your fingertips, and will guide you on best practices. And let's get our background music down. It's going to guide you on best practices and effective approaches to being able to set up and leverage your environment. So again, here are the different stages that shows them in a sequential order. So there are stages. They also offer different definitions here. So if you're trying to build out your own definitions on what you think these life cycle stages mean, again, I would look to the HubSpot knowledge base article and follow these definitions. There's ways within your CRM to automate the movement of life cycle stages, and would definitely recommend that. We'll go ahead and pull up one of our test environments here and show you what it looks like behind the scenes to work with these different life cycle stages. But one thing that I always recommend is that as much as possible, if we can make the life cycle stage property update automatically, it's just going to be easier and more delightful for everyone involved. Things that have to be manually updated tend to not happen as frequently as things that just automatically happen based off different workflows and triggers. And so I'm going to pull up a test environment here to demonstrate what this looks like. So here is a contact record within a HubSpot instance. This is a mock data on a it's mock data, so on a sandbox environment. And so we have a contact record. We can see their information here, different actions that are located here, and then we have all the properties on the left-hand side. And one of those is lifecycle stage. So I can see lifecycle stage here, and with this, I'm able to see the different list here as well of lifecycle stages. This is out of box. It has not been changed. And then if I hover over the property itself, I'll see this details box pop up, and I can click on details to see the movement and how this stage was set and like what predicated it as well. So right now this life cycle, or this contact, is in a life cycle stage of lead. Now typically I wouldn't recommend like manually updating stages unless for sure that things need to be cleaned up and corrected. Usually I promote to like update these stages through workflows, and in fact, why don't we I'll go ahead and queue up one of those behind the scenes, and then we can see what a workflow for life cycle stages might look like. And so one way to do that is to just go back to our property here. We can click, and then we can say, yep, this is a lead, this is an MQL, this is sales qualified, etc. But what we usually see is workflows that do this. And so let me just pull a workflow in here. We'll start with a blank workflow. And oftentimes, like if you might have saw it on our spreadsheet, we will typically set a contact to an MQL when it exceeds a certain score. So let's just build something like that real quick. And so I might say, I'm going to set the enrollment criteria to look at a score property called HubSpot score. And I'm just going to arbitrarily set a number. This likely won't apply for you because one, you want to set up a lead scoring system. But this is just, again, just arbitrary for demonstration purposes. So you might have a set MQL workflows, what I'm going to name this one. And the trigger is going to be when the HubSpot score exceeds 80. And then the action of that would be to set a property. Or edit record in this case. I think it used to be called set property. And we're going to edit the contact, and we'll set lifecycle stage. And we'll set it to MQL. There you have it. So this is an example of using automation or workflow to set a lifecycle stage. So ideally, again, you might have a workflow for every single stage. You might have a workflow that says, set a contact to a lead when we have their first name, last name, phone, email, right? Might be a very minimum criteria at that point. But then set it to an MQL once they hit a certain score, right? Because the scoring typically is going to be a combination of demographic and behavioral or even firmographic information as well. So it could be demographic, firmographic, behavioral, engagement type information that all would go into determining a score at which you would want to set that contact's lifecycle stage to MQL. And you might have another workflow for SQL, another one for customer, etc. In fact, maybe we'll come up with some recipes around that for a future stream this week, so we can actually have some workflows to say, hey, this is typically the workflow that we see and have set up in the past to support with this transition. Additionally, the lifecycle stages are automatically set during a couple of key things. For example, you do create a default lifecycle stage. There is a setting within HubSpot in which, and this is what the settings look like. But you can set the lifecycle stage when a contact or company is created. And so there's a default one. Typically, this is either going to be subscriber or lead. And for me, I usually go with subscriber. And then there is another setting here to set the lifecycle stage when a deal is created. So when a contact or a company is associated to a deal that's being created, usually we'll create that right away into the opportunity stage. And then lastly, when the lifecycle stage is won, meaning you move a deal that was associated to a contact or company into one of the deal one stages within HubSpot, then you can also set the automation to move that contact into a customer. So these are some just CRM settings that you can create to automate the movement of contacts through different stages. But note that the things that you don't see are like MQL or SQL or even evangelist or other, right? And so those lifecycle stages aren't in these CRM settings, and that's where you would want to use a workflow like so in order to accomplish that. And let's see if there's anything else that we want to cover here real quick. There is a lengthy knowledge article here. The nice thing about life cycle stages and the reason why we want to track it, there's a couple of key reasons. Of course, one is it helps with creating lists of contacts so you can see where people are at in the different life cycle stages, which will allow us to engage with them in different ways. Also, HubSpot is making timestamps, and for that matter, any CRM that you're using with that tracks like life cycle stages usually will track the time that it takes in different stages. So then that way you can start to see how long people move or take, to get from point A to point B in your life cycle journey. On top of that, you can also see the conversion rates and the subsequent drop-offs in conversion at the different stages. So that's where tracking these different life cycle stages becomes very valuable. All right, so we've covered a few examples. Let's go ahead and queue up our next item here. So we've talked about just a foundational understanding of life cycle stages and their importance, and we've discussed how HubSpot handles that through CRM settings and how to set up automations to move contacts through later stages in the life cycle. And we talked about customizing stages as well, what to consider if you're removing stages, adding stages, or renaming stages. So now let's walk through a couple of real-life examples of life cycle stages. So I'm going to go ahead and queue up our next visual there. 1 second. Alright, so I'm going to create a funnel report, and let me show you what that looks like inside this test environment first. So in order to see the movement of contacts through different stages of the funnel, we create a funnel report. So inside your HubSpot dashboard, you can go to reporting on this left-hand part, hover over that, and go to reports. And then we'll click create a report. This orange button on the top right. Oh, let me actually bring that back on screen, and I'll lower down their background music. So let me walk through that one more time. So on the left-hand side, there's this reporting. Looks like the 3 bars here up and to the right on the left-hand side of the screen. with the reporting icon. So reporting, and then we'll click on reports. Oh, we're still not showing. There we go. All right, so reporting on the left-hand side, click reports, and then we click create report. Now we can show this as a funnel report, so I'm going to click funnels from the list. And funnel reports will work for things like contacts, deals, companies, and leads. For this one, I'm going to select contacts. All right, so here's a blank funnel report. And we've actually created a ton of these in our prior videos. So I'm just going to probably run through like 1 or 2 of the examples this time. But if you want to see more and see how, my analysis and thoughts and approaches to other potential visuals that we're just about to produce here, do just go to our YouTube or LinkedIn, our YouTube channel at Media Garcia. And on Twitch as well, actually. Both of them will have examples of these items, so you can keep that going there. Okay, so we have this stage 1 here, and if I click choose events, I'm going to add an event called contact record created, right? And click save, and then let's set a second stage up, and I'm going to call this we'll call this subscriber at the contact lifecycle stage. One thing to note is that there are the same lifecycle stages apply to both companies and contacts. So as you build these reports, just make sure that if you're building a contact lifecycle stage report, make sure that you just pick contacts, lifecycle stages for all of your reporting. And same goes if you're trying to build a company lifecycle stage report, then you can just click company and keep that going as well. Okay, good. So I am going to create this report, and let's do all of this year. Will that work? Maybe last year. Let's try that. It's a test mock portal, so there's not a lot of really good information. As you can see, we can see 231 contacts were created. This is all our mock data, and in this case, none of them moved to subscriber. Let me change this to lead and see if any move to lead. And let's refresh the report. Okay, good. So they all moved to lead. So chances are they did that because our default status for contacts was likely lead in this case. So now we have 231 that were created. 231 went to lead. If I add another stage, the stage after lead, let's just call it marketing qualified lead again, making sure that I pick the contact lifecycle stage. Now we have 3 stages in this funnel report, and then we can see, oh, there's a big drop off. So 231 were created, all those moved to lead, none of them moved to MQL. So this would tell me that there's likely not a scoring system in place that's taking these leads and scoring them and automatically moving them to marketing qualified lead. Another piece to note as we're building out all these different stages is that there's this gray box that says required. That just means as you're building out your funnel report that you only want to see data of contacts that moved through every single stage sequentially and did not skip any stages. If you want to allow, or if you want to see the data where stage skipping was part of the data, then you would want to go to the stages that are in between your starting and ending stages, and to adjust this optional button in the upper right hand side. So what that does is it just makes that middle stage or middle stages optional. Now I did that and it didn't really change the data here, so that tells me that everything just moved from record created to lead and didn't move on beyond to marketing qualified lead. But if I keep building this out, let's build out let's put in sales qualified lead, save, and then I'm going to go back to marketing qualified lead and make this optional and refresh this report. And you can see again, now to move to sales qualified lead, let's add opportunity. And I'm going to make SQL optional and refresh. Okay, now we can see there was 2 opportunities that came in. So total conversion to this stage just about 1%. And I'm going to add another one for customer. And make opportunity optional. And refresh our report. All right. So we can see that 231 were created, 2 opportunities, 137 went to customers. And so in between, right, we can see some drop-offs and some gaps. On one hand, it's neat to see a 59% total conversion from created to customer, but there's a lot of gaps, in data, and naturally that's because this is a sandbox environment, so not surprised by that. All right, excellent. So now let's do this setup in another environment. So I'm going to pull that on screen here, and let's go ahead and choose our events. So I'm going to start again with contact info, contact record created, and let's pull in subscriber. And I'm just going to add all these stages in. I'm going to go back through and make all the middle stages optional. The reason why I'm making them all optional is because chances are, for this particular instance here, I know that contacts aren't necessarily moving sequentially through each stage. Okay. Get our music down a little bit, and I think we're ready to run this report. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so we have what looks like about 69,000 contacts created. They all skip subscriber stage, move to lead. And then there's 227 MQLs, 216 SQLs, 1 opportunity, 2 customers, right? So definitely seeing some peculiarities here that we're going to dig into a little bit. So first of all, this is a vertical funnel. We can also visualize this as Sankey. If you're at HubSpot Enterprise subscription, Marketing Enterprise subscription or higher, you can visualize as Sankey. The advantages of looking at it as a Sankey is that you'll be able to see the flow of contacts a little bit more than you can when you see it as a funnel, because funnels just go top to bottom and just look at the conversions throughout and the deals skipping stages. You also get this table of data down below. The nice thing about the table of data down below is that you can actually see how long things are taking in between stages. So you can say, okay, well, things typically take 12 hours to go from here to there, or from sales qualified lead to customer, they typically take 6 days. So that's the value of that piece. But let's go ahead and now look at it as a Sankey. All right, here we go. So now we can actually see a little bit more movement, right, from the very initial creation stage to where things are moving next, and kind of the source, the target, and the amount that's moving in between. And so we can see a lot of contacts are being created. They skip subscriber stage, that's not being used, and then they go into lead stage. And then from lead, a small flow looks like 0.3%, move into MQL, of which when they reach that stage, it does look like most of them, about 94%, will move from MQL to the next stage, sales qualified lead, And then you can see, like, again, the conversions in between there. And then you can see that sometimes at this lead stage that it just will skip. Like this one skips MQL and it goes straight to SQL. Then this one here skips both MQL and SQL and just goes straight to opportunity. I'm going to click this box here to show the drop-offs, because we're also going to want to see drop-offs. It's going to revisualize the chart for us. And then, again, it's going to show us just like different visualization. And I think it's actually more impactful because now you can see how much is dropping off at each different stage. And the drop-offs are illustrated by this like red arrow, and because it's not going to like any of these boxes. So the rectangles are the different stages, and then so if you see a red arrow, it means that there's a drop-off. So one thing I'd want to look at is, well, there's a huge drop-off, right, from lead to nowhere, right? So it looks like, out of the 69,000 that came in, just about that much did not move out. And so this would be a point that we'd want to focus on and say, okay, well, what's happening with these leads? Why aren't they moving into MQL? Do we have a HubSpot score system set up in a workflow that moves high quality leads into the marketing qualified lead stage? Or do we not have that, and we have to put that into place? Same goes for those later stages as well. Even though the numbers are a little bit smaller, you might want to look at these ones and say, well, 12 out of 227, is that of concern? And do we want to analyze and better understand what's going on here? So here's an example of how to look at Sankey chart. Now, if you don't have a marketing enterprise subscription, and if you're, that's weird, why can't I go back? Oh, you can't show drop-offs on the tables. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck tables. And if you're just looking at stuff at the funnels, well, there sort of is a way for us to be able to visualize the drop-offs of the contacts that are moving through different stages. And again, we show this in a prior stream. And so we were using a website called Sankey. Let me pull that up here. Looks like this. So if you really want to be able to, go to your team or leadership team or whoever, right, and or even for yourself, if you're just wanting to visualize the information in a way, because one, it tells a better story, right, than I think the funnel. There are tools out there that can help you build a Sankey chart, just like with some kind of basic code. So here's all the code and colors and all that kind of stuff, and all this produces this. So if I were to go and change numbers here, like so, and this wasn't food, but this is fast food, right? We can see that this Sankey chart is automatically updating, as we make changes here. And so then you can just create your own data around this, which in our prior streams we did produce the steps to do this. I'm not going to go through all the steps to making the Sankey data, but if you want to learn how to take your HubSpot funnel data that looks like this, or even this, we actually took this table of data. If you want to take this table of data and produce something that looks kind of like this, where not only did we have the table, but we also we created some formulas to be able to prep the information. And then we also used the days that contacts were in those stages for. We actually colored the Sankey chart so that way you can visualize the information better. And I'll show you what I mean. So here was an example from another portal, HubSpot portal of contact data. So you can see contacts coming in as a subscriber, and then all the purple stuff is leading to a drop off. So you can see subscribers at 831, and then if I hover over, I can see in that little pop up. It might not show up on screen on the stream, but I can see that there was 503 that moved in between here. And then I can also observe the movement of these subscribers in different stages. So some moved to lead, some to MQL, some went fast tracked right to customer, etc. Right? So there's a couple of things I want to look at, right? One is big drop offs. Two is when things don't move sequentially and why. And then 3, I want to look at the speed at which things are moving through these items. So we've highlighted items that are moving quickly or like meeting our expectations in terms of speed as green. So I can say, oh, these ones are green. So whenever we had a contact come in as a subscriber and they moved into customer or opportunity, we can see that likely was moving like efficiently, right? Now here's a yellow bar, which we set when things were taking a little bit longer. And then we also set some red bars for when things were taking like weeks, to move into the next stages. Every company is going to be different depending on your life cycle stages, but you can always just create a baseline of where you're at today and then say, well, if you're here, are you happy with where you're at? And if you are, then, call it green, right? Instead of threshold, and figure out where your yellow and red thresholds might be. And from that, you can start to see, okay, not only can I see the amount of contacts that are coming in, I can see where they're moving, and I can see how fast they're moving, all at a glance of a picture, right? And from that, we're able to discern different types of insights and different types of recommendations from that as well. Let's pull up another one. Again, we already prepped a lot of this data. It's going to be in one of our prior streams. And if you have questions about this or anything, feel free to put them in chat, or you can always reach out to us at mediagarcia.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. Here's another example of a Sankey chart. Now, the Sankey Matic tool does show when different stages had like no data move in between them. But just for the sake of keeping things kind of tidy and clean, I'm just going to remove those for now because they're kind of distracting. And they draw a line in between them, even though there's no data or there's no numbers that are flowing in between. So here's another example of a Sankey based on different life cycle information. So we can see, X amount of, 5,476 contacts created, a huge drop off. Leads in green, so meaning things move quickly in between them, but we can see another big drop off, right? So some questions here might be, why just 100 to subscriber, mostly to leads, that they're not in order, right? And then so few contacts are, dripping out of lead and subscriber into customers. And again, so I'd want to validate and better understand what's kind of driving that. Let's look at another example. I'm probably going to have to remove the zeros from this one too. I can already see that they're in there. What happened? It does not match the format. Did I copy something wrong? All right, we're going to skip that one. Let's look at this one. Yeah, same thing. Going to remove the zeros. All right, this one's doesn't have the coloring that we put, so it's just doing default colors, but you can see again, contacts created, eventually as into leads, and then the drop-offs, and then movement into opportunity, and eventually customer. So yeah, that's how Sankey charts can work, and the benefits of using them. So again, the key value of the Sankey, right, is that we can see the movement of data as a visualization, and with that, we're able to see how many contacts are moving, how quickly they're moving, and where there's the drop-offs that are happening in between. With these information like conversion rates, stage velocity, and drop-off points, you're able to gain insights and understanding of like where there might be drips or clogs within your life cycle stages, so that you can address them appropriately. For example, if you see you're having huge drop-offs or drips out of those stages, then look at what might be causing that, right? Like what could be done to capture that and optimize your conversion rate. For example, we looked at some examples where there was a lot of stuff that didn't move into MQL, or marketing qualified lead, and that might be a good case to examine your lead scoring and make sure that you have lead scoring set up and that it's being used effectively to elevate those MQLs out of the lead status. We'll make these templates and this information available on our website. If you want to stay tuned, please do like, share, subscribe to our streams so you can be notified of future streams. And if you go to our website, mediagarcia.com/stream, you can also fill out a form there to have one of these where we'll actually go into your HubSpot environment and do a deep dive and perform this step along with many other steps to help you get the value out of your CRM. So you can go learn more information about what's included in our complimentary weekly deep dive of your environment. We'll be starting with lifecycle stages, but in future webinars and streams, and we'll be looking at things like lead scoring, data quality, marketing campaigns. And from all this, right, we're providing a kind of a weekly nugget, golden nugget to you to say, hey, here's how you have your structure set up, and here's our recommendations to get more value out of it. But we'll have lots of different things that we do. We regularly perform portal assessments and audits for our contacts, so we know how things ought to be set up and best practices and standards around that. And there's a form here, right, to start your assessment onboarding. Should you want to have your own Sankey chart, or for us to go in and look at your life cycle stages and give you recommendations on what to do in order to get more value out of them. And as I mentioned before, we've been actually streaming about lifecycle stages here for the last week or so. So we have other videos where we dig in even deeper into the setup of those Sankey charts and other key pieces of information. I thank you for joining the stream. It was great to share this information with you. We do have upcoming streams that are coming. Our normal schedule was Monday, Tuesday, but I think for this week, we're going to adjust it to a Monday, Wednesday, and we're going to try that out and see if we want to do that going forward. So again, do like, share, subscribe, so that way you can be notified and alerted when we have other content that's coming out, and we'll have giveaways, and we'll have new topics that we're going to get into. So we're just wrapping up our life cycle stage topic here for this week. Next week, we'll be getting into how life cycle stages and lead statuses and deal stages can all work together to get us what we want. I appreciate you spending this hour with me here today, and we'll see you on the flip side.